We're going to be talking about financial literacy today. And I'm going to do something a little different from previous Helen's Daughter's Ag Academy. I'm going to flip it up a bit. I normally start the first day with looking at financial wellness, looking at our journeys and things that influence financial literacy, basically. But because the last couple of months I have been working on a climate finance program, I'm not sure how many of you attended the recent climate finance symposium 2 weeks ago? Or was it last week? Anyone? Type yes in the chat.
I didn't hear the question or the statement.
How many persons attended the Climate Capital Symposium last week at Kuna in St. Kitts? Anyone from this group? Okay, you didn't know about it. How many persons we have in the group? Nearly 28? So Dean Sheridan said she didn't know about it. Okay. So since we're talking about financial literacy, and we're also talking about how we empower ourselves as women agropreneurs, I think it would be remiss of me if I don't share information and knowledge about climate finance so that you're aware. So, like I said before, we normally start off the session with just looking at financial wellness, which we'll do tomorrow in the next session. But what I wanted to do is try and wet your beaks a little bit. There are lots of opportunities, and I know a lot of you are looking at how to access finance. So before I go on, I want to apologize. I've been a little busy, so I haven't been able to pop into some of your sessions with the other facilitators. So just so that we can do a quick round of introductions, let's do a quick round of introductions so I know who you are, you know who I am, and so we can actually have a nice, friendly environment for us to talk about finance, because as women, we don't normally talk about finance. So who wants to start?
My name is Judy Ann, and I live in St. Kitts.
Okay. And what do you do, Judy Ann?
I work on the farm, and I have a little restaurant and bar.
Farm, restaurant, and bar. Good. Nice to meet you, Judy Ann.
Same here.
And what are your expectations for this session?
Well, I've learned a lot since I started, and that was my goal. There's a lot of things that I was doing. I realized that when I visit Mackie's farm, I realized I was implementing some of those things already.
Very good. So farmer, restaurant, very good. And what do you want to get out of financial literacy?
As much knowledge as I can.
Okay, knowledge. Okay. Pick my brain. Pick my brain. Okay, next. Thank you, Julianne.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Brazier.
Hi, Cynthia.
From Nevis.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Are you in agribusiness, agro-processing, or planning?
No, not really. I am doing gardening in my yard, basically.
Backyard gardening, okay. What do you do normally?
I am retired, so I do all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Perfect. And what are your expectations for financial literacy?
I just want to learn as much as I can from all the sessions.
Okay. Perfect.
Just,
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Okay. Next.
Good evening. My name's Tracy Fraser from Nevis. I work in tourism, but I have a backyard, a back garden that my husband and myself use and till the soil, I would say. I also have a community group that we have a piece of land that we're going to do playgrounds and sustainable stuff. So this here will help me with that also and help to teach the other ladies in the group what we need to do. I've tried to get them onto the course, but they didn't have the time. So as much information as I've picked up, I will try and let them know what we can do to make our community group thrive. And we'll also have a garden there. We have a few landscape and gardeners, so that's going to help a lot.
Okay, perfect. And expectations for financial literacy?
How to get more money. How to get more money from different entities and how to use your money, your money that you make wisely, basically.
Okay, got you. Jody Titley, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Says she wants to learn how to manage her resources, maximize profit. She can't sleep. Okay, where are you, Jody? Are you in St. Kitts or are you in Nevis? Okay. Wonderful. We have lots of revisions today. Very good. All right, next. Who's up next?
Hi, I am Akisha Fergus from Nevis. I have a small business where I have a smoothie shop. I provide 85% of my fruits. I have an all-natural farm right now that is over an acre. I am occupying half of it. And I am trying to expand with more crops, more fruit trees, more drips. And what I'm expecting from this is just like the previous person,
filled with comments asking her to do anything, but it seemed like the scene was visiting more often. Like I said before, charged with.
Yes, go ahead, Akisha. My apology. Akisha, that's it?
Yes.
Awesome.
What I am expecting from this session is to move forward in how to approach persons in getting a loan, because I use matting and, as I said, the drip system, and it's about half of my farm is already mapped out because I'm trying to work smart and not hard. So yeah, I just need that education and about that aspect in getting more money from whoever to expand the thing.
Access to finance.
Yes.
Always a big challenge for us women, especially in things. Okay, Sharon Morton from Nevis, she wants to learn about grants. Okay, I will cover some of that today. Actually, give you a little bit of a taste test so that you can start looking at options as well. Okay, next. Sharon said she wants to learn about financial freedom. Perfect. Who's next? Don't be shy. You've had this course for how many weeks now? Robertina?
Hi, good evening. Apologies, I would have just joined in late. Would you repeat the question? I was just trying to figure out what the question was in terms of based on what the young ladies were saying.
Introduce yourself, let me know what you do and what your expectations are from this course.
The entire program?
Or this module.
Okay, I was just going through my phone to see exactly what we were gonna be covering today.
Financial literacy.
I'm sorry?
Financial literacy.
Oh, okay, all right then, thank you. Okay, well, my name is Robertina Edwin, and I am more engaged, at least at the moment, in buying and selling, well, more for food products. I kind of import food products from the Windward Islands, and I try to meet the gap that exists in St. Kitts right now. I also have a garden around where I live right now, where I have a lot of fruit trees, and we do have an extensive market for persons who are interested in fruits, either to do their smoothies or to do their drinks for their own little businesses. So, yeah, so I do provide those. In terms of the current module, in terms of financial literacy, I must say that I do have a certain knowledge about it, but what I'm more interested in right now is in terms of grants and the structure of grants and how maybe the Ministry of Agriculture, maybe I guess for us, would be able to provide opportunities that we can be aware of and we can monitor so we can take advantage of it as small farmers.
Okay. Perfect. Nice to meet you. And you're based in St. Kitts or Nevis?
St. Kitts.
Okay, so let's read in the chat. A few people have been in there. You have Beryl Seaton from Nevis. She's a farmer and she's a former financial service provider. She's here to learn as much as possible. Vernie Hanley, she's from Nevis as well. She can't speak at the moment. She's managing a school cafeteria and she expects to learn as much as she can for her future endeavors. Okay, great. Nice to meet you, ladies. Okay, so let's take 4 more people. Who's next?
Hi.
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm Seldine. I live in Dip Bay in St. Kitts. I'm newly retired and moved back home. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about doing an agro business, preferably doing something in the broiler industry. So I will be trying to find out ways of funding to help me start the venture safely.
Okay. So access to finance. Okay. Nice to meet you, Seldine. Let's see. Tara's Door. She lives in Nevis. Works in education. She wants to learn as much as possible. Her dream is to get into providing, oh, I know. I lost that. Allergy-friendly products. Ooh. Hopefully the session will help me understand how to access and source funding. So I guess I'm meeting on the pulse because a lot of people want to learn about grants. And I have quite a few to share with you today. Antoinette said, yeah. She's in St. Kitts. She wants to learn about how to make money, manage money from farming practices and managing it smartly. She wants to learn about funding as well. Jacqueline Charles in the SK, she's retired. She's here to learn as much as possible. Thank you, ladies. I was asking Lakeisha Rogers. Are you there, Lakeisha? I start calling people randomly.
Yes, good. My name is Lakeisha Rogers. I am from Nevis.
Apologies for my dogs. And yes, what do you do, Lakeisha? Lakeisha, what do you do? Can I hear you?
I am a pharmacy technician.
Pharmacy technician, okay, great.
Yes, but my mom has a farm,
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I got into the agriculture side of things. So basically, for this program, I'm just here to learn as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
managing everything.
You ever think of merging what you do in pharmacology with the farming and develop some nutraceuticals? We need products, you know?
That's true. And honestly, no, I have never thought of that idea.
Marry both your passions, because you know when you're in business, you have to be very passionate. So if you're already doing something and you have that skill set, you can add value and go into more nutraceuticals, cosmetology, based on the science of what we grow.
Sometimes when you look at it, is how readily resources are to you.
Yes. Agreed. But there's something that I don't know if we'll be able to cover it over the few days, but there's something when you're starting something new, you always need to do your research and you need to test the market. So even though you don't have a full product, I think as we're learning from each other, you'll find that even some of the women here have already tried different products in the market. Just test it, get feedback, test it again. I mean, you wouldn't know until you try something, and you can develop a small prototype before you scale it. So just bear that in mind, because there are lots of opportunities there, especially now. We're looking at hemp, we're looking at cannabis and other things too. Okay, nice to meet you, Lakeisha. Don Hodge Percival, I think I know you, Don. She's working at the STEP office as a training clerk, professional cosmetologist, esthetician, and she also has a backyard garden. She wants to learn about grants and money management. Nice to meet you, Dawn. Jacqueline Charles, did I miss you? Yeah. She lives in St. Kitts, retired, here to learn as much money management and funding. Julie Bedford, Nevis, working in banking, and she's already interested in managing money. She's now interested in applying it to backyard farming. So to you, Julie, I would say when you're thinking about scaling opportunities, sometimes we have a sort of tunnel vision to say, this is all I know about agriculture and I'm going to do that. Hopefully when we get into our sessions, I'm going to do a revenue model innovation where you can now relook and reassess your revenue models as well as your business models to see how you can create new models that can optimize revenue. And it could also be in services. So the marriage of finance and agriculture is fantastic if you know how to make it work. So when you're thinking about maybe scaling into farming and financing it, there are some new models that you can look at as well. Nice to meet you, Julie. Heather Liebert, current English teacher. Beekeeping and mushroom farming. Very nice, unique niches. I don't like bees, I'm allergic, but it's a very, very, making honey is a very lucrative area. And I think they have a beekeeping association. I'm not sure if it's still up and running. Lakeisha, we spoke. Dawn, we spoke. Daniela Ortiz Batalla. ¿Cómo se llama esto? She's from Colombia, living in St. Kitts. She's an artist, and she's here to learn. Mucho gusto, welcome. Anyone else wants to share? Desiree Ward Carey, nurse by profession. She is into livestock and she wants to start her farm. Actually, I do have a livestock grant, so probably I might pull it out at the end of the session, or I will email it for tomorrow's session, but there is a livestock grant. So for any of you who are into livestock, there's an opportunity in livestock right now. Okay. So we have time for 2 more. And then we kick off 30 minutes. Lorazine Williams, St. Kitts retired, part of a church group, great interest in farming, judgment for security. She's working in a church, a plot in the back of the church, and she wants to learn how to manage financial resources and make some money while feeding people. Okay, social enterprise, very good. Awesome. So now that we have gotten to know one another, let me introduce myself. So I'm kind of happy to have new faces. Normally in a group, I normally know 1 or 2, or maybe I still know 1 or 2 people. So my name is Telly Valerie Ono, and I am your financial literacy facilitator. I have a very, you could say, a multidisciplinary background. So first of all, I have been in St. Kitts and Nevis for, this will make 14 plus years. Originally from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with also some heritage, Nigerian heritage. And I'm a management consultant full-time. I also am quasi-banker in private banking. I work with a Canadian group. They have operations in Canada and other places like Dubai and so on. So that's a little niche on the private banking side. But for those of you who know me, you know I'm also into tech and especially fintech. I'm all for looking at how technology can transform and optimize our operations. And of course, I always have a passion for private sector development. So you could say, I'm not only going to be looking at things from a pure financial lens, I am going to be introducing some other elements that you will not normally get in a financial literacy session. And again, we only have a few days. So I will try and optimize and cover also the areas that you want me to touch on. So I'm glad in this initial introduction, and for those of you who haven't spoken, we'll probably have time tomorrow and the other days to catch up. From what I'm getting, and I summarize, apart from trying to get a sense of knowing everything you need to know about financial literacy and just learning, some persons have specifically indicated that access to finance is one of the areas, especially grant funding. And I underscore grant funding because, you know, grant funding is about freeness or perceived freeness where you don't have to pay it back. So before I go forward, did anybody apply to the Greenpreneurship program by any chance? They've been doing it in the last, maybe over the last year. I think the last one was in July. The ministry, the new Ministry of Small Business and Entrepreneurship is the contact point for the Greenpreneurship program. So anybody?
Didn't know about it.
Okay, so that's one area, knowledge. And I think everyone complains that lack of knowing where the information is sometimes is what's keeping you from accessing information. So that's one. So I will try and share with you a lot of resources We also have, I'm also the national project coordinator for one of the Green Climate Fund readiness projects, which is under the Ministry of Sustainable Development, which is the actual representative of the Green Climate Fund. So under my project, one of the areas is increasing or building capacity and empowering the private sector in access to climate finance. And of course, in 1 year, we're not saying we'll work miracles, but at least impart the type of information and knowledge to empower you to, when you see opportunities, you can actually activate yourself and apply. So we've had a number of different sessions this year on raising awareness about climate finance with the private sector and a lot of SMEs as well. And of course, one of the big areas they have all indicated is knowing where the information is, not knowing when the information is, and when you get to know about it, it's always very late. So hopefully, what I will do, since grant funding is something a lot of you want to, while we might not have the entire time to cover everything, I will share today some opportunities. Tomorrow, I would actually look through, we'll work through together some of the application criteria, so at least you're aware of the application criteria. And if anyone is interested afterwards to have like a one-on-one with me or an extra office hour, I'm always open to doing that to fill in the gaps. Okay, so that's one. So it's now 6:30. Let me I'm going to do something. So I'm going to share a little bit. Hold on. Can I share my screen, Latoya? Yes. Okay. So I am going to do a little bit of an intro, and then I'm going to go through a little bit of a segue outside of my intro into talking a bit about climate finance. I think you would appreciate, we're getting straight into opportunities, and then we will then backtrack into all the other contextual stuff that will help you with decision making. When I'm doing a financial literacy course, actually, I go a bit beyond financial literacy and focus on financial capability. Because for me, financial literacy is just basic information, but I think the most important thing is how you apply it. And a lot of us are not applying it. A lot of us are not necessarily aware of some of the opportunities for decision making. So I really focus on, at the end of the session, how you can be better prepared to make certain decisions. It's not just about spreadsheets and paper. It's really about how you're thinking in a space where you're always thinking numbers, and the numbers make sense to your business model. So I know you had a number of different sessions. Have you done your agribusiness module yet? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay. So you've done your agribusiness module, and what I will do on the last day, I'm gonna cover the business model, looking at your business model and how it relates to your financials. Because a lot of times as us business people, we want a business plan done, you go to someone else and say, come help me do my plan, but you're not necessarily thinking about the numbers, and you're actually the one doing the business. So knowing your numbers, how to manage your numbers, and taking control of that situation will help to you make better decisions. So my focus is really on financial security and making right financial decisions. Another thing I'm going to talk about in terms of, you know, some persons talk about options, making the right decisions. We will have a little bit of a conversation, not today, maybe tomorrow, on use of even good debt. A lot of us run away from debt because we don't know it, we don't understand how to leverage it, and we're not disciplined and committed. So if you understand how you can leverage debt and the different options you have even in our market to help grow your funds so that you're not in debt. So we talk a little bit on investments. I think you'll be much better off in the long run. So just a little teaser here. And mind you, tomorrow I'm going to focus on the money mindset and financial decision making. This is very, very critical because a lot of times our financial decision making comes from how we are programmed, some external, should I say, events that have happened in our lives have shaped the way we behave about money. So I need you to take this away. When we're dealing with money mindset and when we're dealing with financial decision making, it's very emotional. It's not functional. We make our decision from an emotional place. So therefore, in order to understand how you make your financial decisions, we have to understand what is that emotional reaction you're having and how to change and relearn and create new healthier habits, right? We'll have a fun session tomorrow where we'll look at some money types or prototypes, and you can see maybe how that persona can influence your decision making on money. But it's a very interactive, very interesting session. So I just wanted to sow a seed, so to speak, so that tomorrow you're better prepared to kind of go deep. Some persons might think it's more like a mindfulness session, but it really has to deal with our emotions. And the reason why we as women don't necessarily have the same levels of access of finance is because we don't talk about money. It's a taboo. It's probably how we were programmed at home. So I just want to sow the seed so when you're thinking about it, you can start thinking about all the different things and influences in your life. What, you know, what is the money story? What are the decisions? What are the influences you have had of persons, even your parents? Hi, Jacqueline, your microphone is on. Okay. Is someone in the chat? Okay, sorry, I've been missing. Monifa Trust, nursing assistant. Okay, I'll come back to read it. Okay, fine. Yeah, so I want you to like take this away when you go home tonight and tomorrow. Start reflecting as to some of your behaviors, some of your reactions when it comes to money. If I sent you $1 million tomorrow, what will happen? How would you react, right? Are you the kind of person that thinks money is the root of all evil because you were told so, or the church told you so? Or do you think that when you have money, it's really about spending and have a nice time? And when we think about money management, it has to start from that level. We have to go deep. We have to go into why are we programmed the way we are to respond and react the way we do? Because if we're not aware of the certain things that make us make those decisions, it's going to be very difficult to manage and very difficult to be disciplined. Okay, Sharon asked me if the session is tomorrow, Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Latoya, is Thursday, correct?
Yes, the next session is on Thursday.
Yeah, sorry. I keep saying tomorrow. My mind is working fast. So think of that. I want to leave that with you. And then when we come on Thursday, we're going to go deep into money mindset, financial decision making, and then understanding some basic principles that lead us into doing things. I don't know if we'll have time. I may have to fit in some time for us to look at cash flow, because cash flow is king. And also I will look at some aspects of newer innovative models, because a lot of times from the previous sessions we've had, some persons have indicated that, well, they wanted to be able to, say, negotiate a new model, a new contract with, say, a Rams or, someone in a supermarket or so on. So we'll share some of those insights. So at least you have some strategic elements that you could definitely pull out for financing. So I'll look at alternative financing. And that goes into my topic today, where I'm going to be looking at financing innovation. Okay. So forgive me. I actually had prepared this presentation for a group. Okay. Good. So I had curated a number of funds for us to look at, and really want to talk about some key opportunities that we have in when we think about alternative finance. And models. Okay. So I'm starting from here. So there are some of you in the group that may not necessarily be focused on your own enterprise, but more community oriented. And therefore, I think one of the areas you should be really looking at is how you can create an impact as a social enterprise and support the rest of the value chain. So there's some topics we will talk about in terms of how you can extend your support and your impact to other farmers as a collective, because that could be one of the areas and aspects of your business model, or how you can use even alternative financing to support them. So when I'm looking at financing innovation and looking at alternative finance and creative financing, it's really about looking out of the box. Things that do not apply today, because let's put all our cards on the table. When it comes to agriculture, first, I'm not even putting the fact that we're women. When it comes to agriculture, financing in our region is a challenge. Why? Because of the variability of agriculture and the fact that a lot of persons in agriculture may not necessarily be business savvy. So things like record keeping, keeping your books, etc. Banks don't quite understand that. And since there's no insurance, the risk of financing agriculture is higher. But thank God you did your session with Mackie Truss. He showed you some innovative ways of introducing sustainable agriculture from even a low tech. And then you also have those that are using more higher tech, more expensive greenhouses, etc. So that's to say, when you think of yourself as an investor in your own enterprise, and you think about how you're going to prepare your business and your enterprise so that it has less risk for someone giving you money, you have to start thinking about introducing more sustainable practices and practices that will increase the likelihood of your farm, being successful. So if you are saying introducing things like greenhouse technology, or you're reducing water by introducing aquaponics or making a mix like that, that's great. But yes, the one challenge is, where are you going to get finance? So as entrepreneurs, money is not the issue, because money is always out there. You just have to know where to go and how to access it. So the key thing is, how do you access these funds? Number one, where can you find them? Or how can you train yourself to be in a space where you can identify those opportunities? Because once you start opening that door, you're going to start seeing more opportunities coming that way. What networks do you need to have? Who do you need to associate with in order to get some of that information? Are you part of any groups right now? I mean, you're part of Helen's Daughters now, thank God. But before that, are you part of any networks? Because these are key areas of how do you get information. Are you part of the chamber? Some may argue chambers for big people. Okay, fine. But if they have an event, it's good to network. You never know. Because a lot of information tends to go to the Chamber of Commerce, etc., before they share it. So there are many different sources, and I'm going to start because a lot of people looking for grants. I will talk about grant. So in the landscape of access to finance, grants tend to be, for me, your highest risk. Yes, it might be free, but sometimes it's harder to even get a grant because it's like an award. It's almost like a gamble. You have to compete for it. So that's like a lottery, right? Number one. Number two, you have to be able to tell your story. So acquiring skills in storytelling is going to be one of your key things. Now, we all have the ability to tell stories, but can we craft it in the way they want us to understand? So these are areas you have to check yourself to say, okay, what are my gaps? What are the areas I need to sharpen my skill? Look around you. From time to time, they always have free workshops happening. And before the end of the course, I'll send you a few free online workshops that you can even participate in to help sharpen your skill sets in like project writing, proposal writing, because it does mean work. And why do I say it's high risk? It's high risk because of the amount of work sometimes it takes to complete some of these applications. It's not that it's useless. It just bear in mind, there's nothing like a quick fix. Agreed? You still have to put in the work. And sometimes, depending on which grant it is, the criteria, you need to sit down and prepare your information. That being said, if you know this is something you have to apply for, you would get yourself organized beforehand and start to prepare your documents. Now, depending on who the grant is going to or who you're applying for, everyone has a different type of forms. But tomorrow, I'm going to share with you a little bit of a cheat sheet of at least the key areas you need to be able to document so that whenever you have these opportunities, you don't lose out. And people who know me will know when these opportunities come, I probably have some information already written down that I just have to dust, repurpose, and hit send. Because a lot of times when one complains, oh, I didn't get enough time, sometimes it's these opportunities that happen where you have to submit tomorrow that you get through. So in July, we launched a call for project proposals for the private sector, St. Kitts and Nevis. We received 16 project proposals. And I remember the one where there are two of them. two entrepreneurs heard about it maybe the day before, begged me to extend the deadline by 1 day. One of those two had one of the highest, or should I say best, put together proposals in the bunch. So last week we announced that the ministry through the Green Climate Fund is going to support all those 16 projects, and they're preparing like a big concept note of 40 million or 50 million to submit to the GCF for further funding. So coming back to why I say grants might be for free. Grants may be something you don't have to pay back, depending on what kind of grant it is. But just bear in mind the length of time sometimes it takes to go through all the paperwork, for them evaluating and assessing, sometimes could be long. For example, when you're dealing with, because you're all in agriculture, and I'm sure all of you are adopting climate smart agriculture, you do know that there's some specific windows of financing that are opening up that you can probably tap into and access. They have a lot of funds. One of them is the Green Climate Fund, which is the largest one, but you can only access that through their national representative, which is through the Ministry of Sustainable Development. So therefore, but their funding is what they call catalytic funding, meaning you have to have some other type of funding somewhere, and they will just complement it. They're not going to give you all of it. So when you start thinking about your project and how you need to finance, obviously, part of the planning is looking at the stage you're in, but also what I found that some of us, especially in Think It's and Nevis, don't do. We tend to be short-sighted and we don't think long-term. Long-term planning isn't something we do. And I think in this intro, someone said, it's because, you know, the resources are not available. So we have to stop limiting ourselves and think and assume. Imagine if you had a blank check, okay? And someone were to ask you about your project, what do you need to do? You don't come tell me, oh, well, I want a little 10,000 here, but you know, 10,000 isn't going to cut it. But you just said 10,000 because you know, well, you're going to try and do something. Okay, in some cases you can get it fit. But before you get to that, what I would challenge you to do is plan your project in its entirety. And I'm thinking, look 5 to 10 years. What are the phases? What is the big picture? So this is why I am going to share with you a little toolkit on how to develop a theory of change, because that is what a lot of these, some donors like USAID, they're very focused on theory of change. And theory of change is just like a methodology that looks at what is the long-term impact and what is the change you want to see. So you cannot be thinking, oh, I'm just doing this project for next year. You have to think 5, 6, 10 years from now, where do you want to be? And since we're talking about a business, and I believe I'm talking to growth-oriented entrepreneurs, you should be looking at how you want to scale that business. Even if you might not necessarily be into like your pure profit, because some of you are into more community-based enterprises, or even in the you know, civil society sector, you still have to have that big picture view. So if there's nothing you take away today, take away this. We need to have a big picture view of our projects. It needs to be longer than 5, maybe 10 years. And when you do that, you're able to break it into phases. So if I ask you your farm project, as you're doing the planning, and I'm going to ask you, how much do you need? And you tell me, oh, I need 100,000. That's fine. But what phase are you at? What do you plan to do now? And where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? Maybe the full scope of your project is really a $5 million project, but because maybe we don't see the funds out there, we limit ourselves. So one of the things you need to start doing is writing down that magic number, right, of what you value your business, because a lot of us are not valuing our business. What would you like to see? Because agriculture is very profitable if you do it right. And there should be no excuses as to why you're not making money. I mean, listen, it's food. Everybody has to eat. So one of the things you need to understand is, what are you worth? What is your business worth? And how are you planning for the long term? What is your big picture? Now, I'm not saying you can reach it today, but it's important to have that big picture, because once you have that big picture, you can now break it up into sub-projects. So at any given time, you might have a project that starts from this month to maybe next year, and that project might be worth maybe 60,000. No problem. But at least you always see what your big picture is, so that as you are implementing your projects and accessing these smaller funds to get you to your goal, you always know exactly what you need to do. The other strategic thing you have to do is, once you are raising in this fashion, smaller amounts and smaller amounts, you need to know exactly how you're using those funds and how the outputs or the deliverables from your project. You have to become a project manager. The deliverables of your projects are going to help you go into the next phase of your plan. So how many of us actually approach our business this way? Let's be honest. Feel free to open your mic. Good night, Shanna.
Can you please repeat the question?
I said, how many of us actually approach our business in this way? Long-term vision, break it up into projects, and function as project managers to execute the project. Or is this the first time you're seeing it framed in such a way?
First time.
Okay, anybody else?
First time.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think subconsciously, as we have different goals,
Yeah.
we kind of do this, but not with the labels project and project manager.
Yeah. You're an investor, number one. You're a project manager, and you're the strategic planner. Chief cook and bottle washer. But you have to understand how to play with those roles so that you can execute on your goals. And very important, because a lot of us get busy working in the business, but not on the business. And this is where we lose out, because when you're working on the business, this is where the strategic planning comes in, planning long-term. So how many of you today can tell me, your project, what is your project worth in 5 years? What would it take for you to execute on your vision? That's the most important. What is your vision for your project? For those of you who are still figuring out, it's also important. What is that vision you see for your project? Bernie says first time. Nelsa? Claudia? Jensia? Deslin? I ask again.
Maybe for me, 10,000.
10,000?
Yes.
Okay. And what are you going to use with 10,000?
Okay. I have to build me houses. When I say houses, like something to house my animals.
Okay.
That's my first thing that I have to do. House my animal properly. And then I have to look at feeding. How am I going to feed my animals? Since I will like to go into producing meat kind, then I still will have to look at their health-wise in terms of if I need medicine for their vaccination, things like that. Then I need workers. I need workers.
So you really think 10,000 is going to cut it when you need to hire workers?
Well, I'm starting small and then I'll grow bigger, just a small little thing. I don't know. I just
So stick a pin right there. I like it starting small, best practice. But do you have the vision for big?
Yes, I have the vision for big.
Is it written down?
But if I have that 10,000 at my exposure, my own personal money, I'll use that for it to grow. And then maybe later on, I can tap into a source that can assist me. Something like that. That's how I'm looking at it.
But you do have a plan for the bigger.
Yes, I have a plan for the bigger.
500,000 community playground. Okay, Tracy. What are you incorporating in this community playground to make it sustainable? Tracy, you have audio?
Okay, we have fencing. We have to fence the area. We're having a garden. We're having a small community center, some rooms, a mini track for the children, and seating area. But the fencing is the first thing that we want to do, so we're doing it in phases.
Right.
So 500, 250 at first, but 500,000 because we want to make sure we have everything, which is safety items, and like we said, a community room, because we have somebody that does classes, so she can do classes in the community room. Also, that has to be sustainable as well, with a roof to do the gardening, for the water, for the garden. And the garden's a community garden where everybody can come and farm and take home. That's the plan.
Okay. So there is no like real business model for sustainability. How are you going to convince a donor to give you the money?
I have no idea. But the only part sustainable is like, we're going to have the garden. You're going to have the community garden, which has to, hopefully we can feed the community basically. With water catchments, we have the water catchments in there also, that's coming off the roof. So that is it's for Maddens. So we want to do it in that area for the community. That's what the plan is. So we're it's a community.
So you still can make a business case for the community.
Yes.
And like that's more community oriented. If someone were to just cut you a blank check for 500,000 and you don't put things in place, does that word sustainability? It could mean many things. It could mean after they give this 500,000, how are you going to ensure? So maybe this feeding program, okay, where it's not for profit, but it will actually sustain it. So you have to start thinking along those lines. And then also, what value are you bringing? What sort of impact? Are we looking at youth at risk, and you're trying to create something, a different avenue from them instead of going into crime? You know, different things like that. So even if you're not looking at a financial return, you still have to think about what is that social return? What is that environmental return? Okay. Because these are still part of the investments to make the case. So someone needs simple tools to keep things so, okay. I'll share with you a few tools. So Tracy, does that make sense?
Yes, of course it does. It really does. It does help.
So how about those of you who are more into commercial farming and maybe agro-processing? What is your magic number? And have you planned out and mapped out what you want to do? Do you have your plan handy? If I were to give you something today, would you be able to apply for it and pitch it? Or would you start struggling and go, oh man, let me think about it now? You know, questions, you start going through the questions and you realize you haven't actually worked on your plan and on your business. Perspectives, let me get a pulse.
As you're talking, more ideas coming to my head. And I never thought of so much things, but for example, commercial for me, $150,000 because I am trying to, as I said, work smart. Matting is a must in order to be sustainable now. The matting would definitely help the production wise to turn over. The drips, all of that would be a factor with cost. The fact that I would have to employ persons because it would be on a larger scale.
Right.
We'd have to put in place things for the pest management and so forth. And again, commercial. So we'd have to have a toilet facility on the farm, things like that. And I would have to have a proper storage that is definitely needed for when the crops are ready to harvest. I know that Nevis Agriculture has their own chiller, but if all is being used, then there's a saying, "Dagon dead with me." So I would definitely need a proper storage. And for long term now, there is a extra 5 acres of land next to me that could be an idea of clearing and put fruit trees there, because fruit trees don't really have much to do for them, but you know, more care. You don't have to have much care as the ground crops and so forth, and continual check-ins with the electrical fence, because I have one right now, so it just means that I have to have more access. Yeah, so yeah, and because pests right now is a big factor with many farmers, it would be really good, because I'm doing it right now to do it as natural as possible with vinegar, with the spraying and so forth. So I try to make it sustainable in that way.
That means your cost of production may go up, huh?
Yeah.
So then
And
let's go to your market. So a lot of us are talking about our products, activities, but what about the market? If you do all these investments and there's no market, how are you gonna sustain it? There was a hand up. Whose hand was up? Ms. Fergus?
I think that was my hand who's
Oh, that
talking.
was your hand, okay.
Yeah, repeat the question.
I said, we're talking about all the things in your business, but you're not talking about the market. Where are the opportunities? Because if you have no market, all this thing you're investing in is just going to go into thing. Everybody has, should I say, a romantic vision about fruit trees. But from a financial standpoint, how long are these trees going to be there? Right? How long? How long does it take to grow? How long is it going to take to harvest? Unless you're doing intercropping, then you are using your asset, which is the land, to do something else. Or you are planting trees, contributing to the climate and benefits of the climate, reducing carbon emissions. And maybe you decide to go something creative like carbon credits. Okay, that makes sense. So you can wait 20 years, be collecting money for doing the nice thing of what we call carbon sequestration, making sure carbon goes into the soil, but you can make money. But I'm trying to show you everything you do is probably an opportunity for you to monetize and optimize and not just sit down there because, yes, I love my fruit trees. How are your fruit trees going to benefit the land? Is it going to regenerate the land? Okay. If it regenerates the land, it's a plus, you know, because think about it. It might take 20 years for the fruit or 10 years or 5 years for it to bloom, depending on what fruit trees you're growing. So sometimes we tend to be so tied into things we're passionate about, but when you look in the market, it's saying something else. So how are you linking all of this thinking into the market opportunity? Food for thought?
Yes.
Food for thought.
As of right now, I grow watermelons and honeydew. Watermelons and honeydew. Watermelons and honeydew. I'm trying to widen that by doing sorrel. I have a large crop right now for sorrel and sweet potatoes and stuff like that. But when it comes to the fruit trees aspect, I was just thinking about long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's also good too. I'm not saying that no idea is a bad idea. I'm just saying this has to be thought through strategically. There should be a reason why you're doing what you're doing, right? It's not like it's not a bad thing, but just think about it.
Thanks.
Okay. So let me jump in because we end up talking and time goes. So I wanted to introduce you a little bit to some elements of financial innovation so that we could start thinking out of the box and not necessarily, you know, boxing it in. I would end, I promise you, with a few grant opportunities. But before I did the segue, I was talking about why grants are high risk. And high risk because some of them require you to do long-term planning. You might do your submissions. Like in the case of GCF, the GCF cycle itself, the long cycle could take 3-4 years. Now, if you're waiting for funding 3-4 years, it could be very long. But if you have planned out your project in such a strategic way, where you know short to medium term, this is what you're doing, this is how you're financing it, maybe with a little loan here, you have a little credit card here, blah, blah, right? But medium to long term, going to. So I just want to say we're going to get grants and then get frustrated with the process if it doesn't happen quickly. Because depending on the criteria, it was some 3 months, 6 months, a year and a half, right? If you are waiting for this full lump sum to even start, then I'll say no. You have to come up with creative ways, what we call bootstrap, where you find your own ways of raising money while you're planning strategically for these grant opportunities. So you should not, I wouldn't recommend you just sit down. Only way I could, no problem. It's still time consuming. And whether it is you're getting grant, you're getting finance to an entrepreneur, it's a very access to finance and going after financing, fundraising, it's a daunting challenge and it takes up all your time. So you want to be mindful of your time and opportunities. So while this might not be here, I still put it here so that you can open your minds to what the possibilities are out there. So this is an entrepreneur. He's out in Nigeria. And a few years ago, I implemented this accelerator program where we got some of the existing enterprises and startups who are working in agriculture, working in clean tech and those type of impact areas to see how they can leverage technology. So this is part of digital transformation. New technologies that I call deep tech, not just fintech, deep tech, things like blockchain, now everyone's talking about AI and how AI can transform the landscape of agriculture, because what do we all need? Information. What do we generate? Information. How can we develop new products? The information. So agriculture is very information intensive, whether it is you're fixing the value chain, fixing the communication flows, or even want to use some technology that you can read the soil, because some of you want to go into purely organic farming. So you need information to provide insight. So you've heard of precision farming. I'm sure Ms. Mackey would have covered some areas like that. These days, farming is becoming more technology intensive. And they have newer, small little devices like beacons you can put in the farm that it will measure your soil, it will take records of the soil, all the things we used to do long ago, right? But now you have technology that can capture that information. There are even some farmers in some part of the world that, based on those technologies, they're able to create their own crop insurance product. So like the little storm that we had here today with the storm surge, you have certain pilot programs in certain countries where they can predict that weeks before, and they have certain insurance products that once that happens and part of your crop get damaged for it, you instantly get paid. So now you're connecting all of this with even mobile payments and so on. So if you have like a JAT cash and it's all connected together. So what I'm saying is, you're here not just to look at the run of the mill. I want you to open your eyes and see opportunities holistically in agriculture. For some of you who are still trying to figure out, there might be an opportunity in providing a service, even to the farmers, right? So just open your minds up to that. And the reason I'm emphasizing on these paradigm shifting, because a lot of opportunities now are requiring you to think out of the box with your solutions. and to think about how you can scale up and also create impact. So now we're thinking about sustainable development goals. You're thinking about climate action. These are all things to create impact. And climate smart agriculture is no stranger to that, because apart from food security and addressing food security, you can create this impact. So just bear that in mind when you're looking at applying for opportunities. And opportunities are definitely aligned with some of these areas. Now, sometimes a particular donor might have one way of looking at something and have an opportunity that they want in a particular way. But like right now, we have a lot of funding flooding the market all around climate finance. So that means, in simple language, if you're looking at innovating your current business model, incorporating more sustainable aspects, incorporating more sustainable things, whether it is resource efficiency, you want to be more efficient, or you want to introduce like a circular system where you have the raw material, you produce something, you recycle it back. All these areas around sustainability SDGs attracting this climate capital. And so a lot of the call for proposals are not going to be, not all the time will be direct to say, okay, if you're an agriculture, apply. No. They might ask for ideas or projects that are innovative, that address a problem a different way. So you also have to start thinking out of the box. How can my project be implemented in a different way? That's one of the hooks for some of the opportunities. So this particular project, it's not a grant. Well, they offer financing to farmers, but what they've been able to do is leverage blockchain technology, where they can now offer financing to the farmers. They're not the only ones. And I'm in talks with another group that actively have been giving alternative loans and alternative grants to farmers using, guess what? Digital assets or stable coins, etc. And then people are able to convert that back into the currencies that are in. So that's thinking out of the box. I'm not saying this might be the case here. Here is an innovative business model. And again, this is around an entrepreneur that also wants to provide social impact. So I think we have Colombian with us, right? I can't remember. ¿Cómo se llama? What's your name? Okay, she probably can't speak. But anyway, this is called Choco for Peace. So his enterprise is, it's interesting. He's running a business, meaning he has a very specific business model, which is using the cacao, you know, for cocoa, for chocolate, and making it, processing it into chocolate bars. Now, I haven't seen that in St. Kitts and Nevis, very new, but in St. Vincent, we have a few chocolatiers, and I think in Grenada and St. Lucia, you know, chocolate is becoming the new thing, and they're doing like bean to bar, where you process it and you can now get it directly into bars and doing products and so on. But he innovated his model a bit, because some of us are still more about giving, right? And what he did was he incorporated changing people. So in Colombia, as you do know, you have some farmers that farm cocaine, the coca plant. And in the coca plant, they get the cocaine extract from it. So he is trying to change their lifestyles by moving them out of coca, coca into cocoa and stuff. So he has an area in that, and he also introduces some training for women. And I think what they have done when they do the shipping, because they export, he went to the Netherlands to export his product and a specific bar there. So he's able to use the technology so that clients can actually track, and from the farm to the delivery and so on. So almost like fair trade, he's able to get better prices. And I'm telling you, it might look fancy, but I sat with him when it was just a little thing of an idea. And he worked on it relentlessly, kept talking to other people, gathering and building a team until he actually managed to build up a fantastic team around that. So this is the end product. And then he did some new ways because it was taking long for him to raise. So what they did is they made out some chocolate bars and they started selling. So just like how we do bake sales, that's another way of bootstrapping and creating some financing. Because even if people want to invest in you, they want to know, okay, they want to be sure that you can actually handle money. So you have to prove to them that, yes, you can do it. So let me skip all of this and go into one other area. So I find this interesting. This has to look at commodity financing. So for those of you who have a financial service lens, if you are still interested in financial services and you want to develop a product, we're looking for you, because we know we don't have nearly enough products, financial products for farming. So here is a simple commodity financing platform. I think you've heard of commodity exchanges. Now with the new technologies, now you can actually have a commodity exchange in a very simplified way through your phone, right? And a lot of times we complain about trust and people going around the back to cut other people out. When you have a system like this, you don't necessarily need to trust each other because everything is encoded in the rules, right? So these are things that we have to start thinking about. So there are opportunities. So this is what I wanted to say. When I mentioned to you in a very simple manner, when you're planning to raise your capital, you have to be able to stack it. You have to break it up into subcomponents. So here is what we call a climate capital stack framework. This is where you can combine different things. So let's just say I'm starting to do cheeses. So I have some livestock, I got some goats, and I want to be different. So rather than having normal livestock, I went with goats and I'm doing goat milk. So granted, maybe in this market, not many people drink goat's milk, but I noticed in the store that you can get goat cheese at a high premium. So I decided that is my niche. I'm going to go into goat cheese. But of course, for me to get in there, there's certain things I have to do. Before the Rams and other supermarkets get me in there, apart from like my normal health license and so on, there are other things I need to do to prepare. Probably my kitchen is not adequate. I have to get like an industrial type kitchen, stuff like that. So the costs start to add up and add up. So this is why I said from the very beginning, you got to know what your vision is and know what that magic number is, and then have it broken down into stages so you know what it is. So this way, when you are what we call stacking your capital, in a way it's like blended finance, you can get a little grant, $10,000, to do your marketing. Now, some people think ridiculous, but when you're thinking about doing promotions, and if you had to pay that out of your pocket, there isn't enough for you to do other things or pay salaries. So if there is a grant that's for marketing, always read what it's for and see if it fits within the framework. What you don't want to do is to see a grant and go, oh, how much? 500,000. It's for something totally different that is not related to any of your plans. It's not a good idea to start rushing to see if you can get it, to see where it fits in. That's the wrong approach. So a capital stack can combine different types of funding. You can have debt funding, which is through loans, or even a credit card for your short-term needs. Of course, if you're using a credit card, know that you're using it for expenses and you have the money from which to pay it off. But it's a very good tool to help you build credit, and also it has a lot of perks as well. Then you can have access a grant for something else. And if you are growing, some persons, not everybody, might be even be able to access private capital. Or in our markets, a lot of persons have agro-processing products and tend to work with suppliers. So I'll show you on the last day how to structure a deal that's almost like an investment, but it's like it allows the investor to get a return without risking your bottom line. So it's a win-win scenario. And I think it's very ideal if you want to structure something with a supplier, right? To put you in there. So be aware of this landscape. It's not there to scare you, but you just have to know and understand that business happens in stages and everybody is at a different stage. When you're just starting out, you have nothing, no sales, whatever, just an idea. You start off with seed capital. And a lot of seed capital would mostly be in grants because you don't have to pay back. But it just means that you have to work hard to try and secure the grants, depending on how long it takes. Again, I mentioned the big word bootstrapping. Does anyone know what bootstrapping means? I'm going to text me.
I didn't hear what you said it's called?
Bootstrapping. You see,
Bootstrapping?
yeah, where I have seed, I have bootstrapping.
No.
Does it have something to do with working your business from the ground up?
Yeah, you would also bootstrapping has to do with you rolling out without you're using your own capital and putting it back. So you're coming up with your own creative ideas to generate capital. So I don't know if I'll be able to grab Anna. I don't know, any of you have heard of Yafin Sugartown Organics? So Anna did like a 5-year bake sale consistently. 5-year bake sale every month. She had a consistent bake sale. She used that bake sale to fund her other business before she was able to get to the next stage, to get grants, to get loans, etc. So bootstrapping just means you find your own ways of financing yourself. So it could mean thinking out of the box. In her case, she started a little business doing cakes. It grew fast. She still did not lose sight of what she wanted to do, but says, you know what? This is helping me turn over. It's bringing in the cash flow. And from that cash flow, she was able to now reinvest it into the projects, the products that she has right now. So that's what you call bootstrapping. So sometimes we have to not just sit down and wait for, okay, I'm looking for an investor, can't find an investor. Of course, there's going to be a stage where you reach, where you actually need cash. But sometimes they say necessity is the mother of all invention. When you're in dire need of things, you start thinking outside of the box and doing different things to help with you. So as entrepreneurs, bootstrapping is something, and I think when we're working on our revenue model, I'll show you exactly how to think out of the box to kind of create maybe new streams of income that could be linked to your existing business model, but using a different lens. So bootstrapping is, of course, everyone's number one go-to. Then you have debt. And don't be afraid of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. You have to know just what is good debt versus bad debt and how to use it. Everybody that grows uses other people's money. You just need to know how to use other people's money in the right order and sequence in order to execute, so you're not placed in a bad position. So another thing, do not be afraid of taking debt. Just know exactly how you're taking it and how to make use of it for it to grow and amplify. So debt is anything that you have to pay like a bank. So they have venture debt that will come from a business. So let's just say, TDC has like financial services. That's a good one. Value Mart. Let's just say Value Mart all of a sudden wants to offer you some kind of loan. That is a business giving you a loan. That will be considered venture debt, where the terms are very similar to that of a bank. You pay them a percentage, et cetera, et cetera. For those who are in more higher growth areas, you find that private investors, or what you call angel investors, these are existing businesses that are more or less giving back and are trying to grow their portfolio in investing in businesses. Some of them like to, rather than give you funds for a piece of ownership, they want to give you a debt that can convert into equity. So just bear that in mind. You have that. Oops. So here you can see equity. A lot of times people talk about, oh yes, I want to raise capital. We need venture capital, but they don't understand. To get venture capital, you have to be at a certain stage and making certain amount of money, right? But what is consistent is you can leverage donations and grants to help you get there along the way. There's also another opportunity here. It's not here. It's still part equity, but depends on who is giving you equity. So there's a newer investment type of asset class emerging called impact investors. These are not your traditional wealthy people like a Bill Gates who want to just give away their money. They want to see a return, but the return doesn't have to be very high. Okay, they're not trying to kill you. Their return is more or less maybe a little higher than a percentage interest from a bank, but they want to see impact. They're more driven by impact. That is why when we had the conversation earlier, and I said, oh, it's 500,000. How are you going to justify it? You need to be able to articulate and explain how you're going to impact the community, the children, et cetera, et cetera. What is the problem, how you're solving it? That is the lingo. So impact investors actually are more into maybe supporting agriculture. Some of them like agriculture, but they do want to receive maybe a little bit of ownership, or they might give you a loan, but they want to have a little bit of return. So bear in mind, is this graph okay? One moment, please. We're probably going to take a little break in 2 minutes. Is this clear? Everyone's quiet. Have you ever seen this before?
Yeah, it's clear.
My audio is breaking up. It's still breaking up.
Haven't seen this before.
Okay. You've never seen this before. Okay, so how many of you have heard of ECPCGC? Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Scheme. How many of you have heard of that long name? Robertina, yes, floor is yours. You've heard of it? You want
Yes,
to...
yes, yes, I have heard of it.
Okay. How many yeah, go ahead. Can
No,
you
I
share
was just
with the group
in
what...
terms of the details of what the mandate is, I'm not necessarily clear on it, but I can get the information if necessary. But it's interesting that you brought it in to see how it can factor in the whole idea of we going into a small business or a business that will eventually expand, and see how those little agencies can assist as well.
Yes. So anybody else heard of it? Or this is the first time? Never heard of it? Okay. So the Eastern Caribbean Credit Partial Guarantee Scheme is a scheme where, okay, we know that running a business is risky. Running an agribusiness is riskier. If you go for a loan, they might tell you 14%, which the market can't sustain, right? The only reason they're giving you a high percentage because there's a risk involved and someone needs to cover that risk because the industry doesn't have insurance. So the government, through the ECCB, so all the governments in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, decided they want to set up this program where funds are given to this or this facility. It has a special facility, so it's funding, but it's not funding that you access directly. It's funding that goes to a bank. So I believe National Bank currently has it. I don't know which other bank. And I know the St. Kitts Credit Union got approved for it, but they haven't implemented it yet. They're waiting to be implemented. So what they do is the government will say they're going to guarantee the loan for you, maybe 50% or 80%. But it still means you still have to come up with a 20%, for you to get it. And loan terms are supposed to be better. So it's just telling the bank, listen, I know we want to encourage you to invest in agriculture and give more loans to agriculture and these other areas. We know it's risky for you and you're afraid of losing your funds. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pay 80%. We're going to guarantee 80%. So just in case the person defaults, we will cover 80% of it. So, banks don't want to take any risk at all. They say, oh, well, if you're covering 80%, that person will have to put up a 20%. But in a way, it's good in a sense that you don't have to put up your house on land, depending on the criteria of the bank. So I'm not sure. I have to double check with National, come back to you tomorrow to see if they also take collateral, but they're not supposed to take collateral because the bank the government is guaranteeing it through this ECPCGC. So just keep in mind that you can say, okay, I'm going to apply to that. Or a nice hack would be, you apply to ECPCGC, you get a small loan somewhere else, and you put up the 20%. This grant is the guarantee is going to cover 80%. And you're able to now leverage the whole facility because you're probably going to get the full 300,000, but all you had to do was put up 10% and you still have money to pay for your loan. Doesn't that make sense? That's strategic. So this way you're not worried about how am I going to pay off the loan? Well, because you already have this facility that you can tap into. So think the word leverage. Every time you're going for financing, especially debt, you have to think of leverage. Questions? Ladies? Everybody is familiar with debt and equity? You know what equity is? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. So equity is when someone is basically buying shares into your company, meaning they're going to be a co-owner of your business. So just bear that in mind. It's like entering into a marriage. So you want to make sure whoever is investing in you that's going to take ownership is someone you can kind of live with, and you know, your values are aligned. Because if values aren't aligned later down, you might get into some tensions with them. And the other thing is equity investors, depending on who it is you're going to, like venture capitalists. Venture capitalists, for me, they're like gamblers, you know, going to the casino every week. They throw money with the hope that within, say they throw, I don't know, $1 million at 20 projects. The chance of one of those projects being utterly successful can pay back all the money. So you see, when you're going to someone with equity, you just have to need to ask them directly, how much are you expecting a return? Because no money is free. Even the grant, that expected rate of return is 0. It's very complex, as you can see. And time, your time is money. So you need to calculate your time. If you know you can allocate the time and get it done, no problem. But the benefit is that you get the grant, you do what you have to do, you build up equity into your own business. So you've built up value, right? Then I was talking about impact investors. Impact investors also provide what I would call catalytic capital. Things like the climate funds also provide catalytic capital. Some offer pure grants. Some offer grants with more favorable terms for equity or loans with lower rates. But it's a way, some of them can even combine the two, where sometimes, you know, a lot of us will say, oh, I need a grant for this. But when you really check it out, your project isn't even ready. You haven't done environmental impact assessment, you haven't done this, you haven't done this. So sometimes it might be worth going into getting a grant that covers technical assistance, training, capacity building, because you don't know what you don't know. You might not be ready to even receive the bigger funds. But it's all about investing and investing in yourself. Okay. Sorry. Trying to go back. Is this part clear? And then project finance happens in the banking world. I won't talk about that today. That's a little different, a little more complicated. It deals with like paper money, commercial paper, bank products. A little different. And like I mentioned before, sometimes we have those guarantee and risk insurance instruments that you can use. Sometimes you might have opportunities to access technical assistance. So you need to build a website, you need to do marketing, you need to do research, all these things you can get technical assistance. And some cases, you might have like a project idea for you to flesh it out into your big 500,000, 1 million, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million. You might need help to prepare because people just assume, well, I just applied for the grant. Have you done the market study? Have you done the feasibility? Did you have to do environmental impact assessment? Are you building a kind of fish farm or a kind of aquaponics in a particular area that might cause an impact in the area? All sorts of things. And if you were to quantify and add it, it probably could rack you up to a good 200,000. I remember one time, back in 2010, I was building a payment system. And I remember struggling, but I managed to get a grant. I was so happy. I wanted to get this grant I really wanted to help develop my demo into a proper demo so that I can use that to secure funds. But the donors decided, no, they're going to have more technical assistance on it to prepare it. And at the time I was grumbling, but when I saw the finished product, I said, well, I really wasn't ready, Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So, is this good? So let's take a break. 5 minutes? Oh no, we're almost about to wrap. Forget about the break. Let's continue. So there are many sources of funding, and some of them are grants. So while most of them I curated here are grants. Some of them, their deadlines may pass, but they always come back. And I have some newer grants I want to show you. Okay, so this one is current, and it is focused around supporting persons in climate adaptation and also in energy efficiency, renewable energy. So you have to understand the difference between the two. Anything around climate mitigation is about how do we address the heating up of the planet and having these carbon emissions being emitted, meaning we're having energy production coming from, we're burning fossil fuel. For those of you in St. Kitts, even those in Nevis, Skylark and Neblet use power to generate. We're not using renewable energy. So that is impacting the climate. So if you can do something to mitigate that, even if it's within your practice, because some of you might want to incorporate some of these clean technologies for climate smart agriculture and even lower your energy. Because for us, I'll be honest with you, in the Caribbean, I think it's in Nevis, we hardly contribute. Our impact is not negative to the client. We contribute this little amount of emissions, not enough to talk about home. But the rest of the planet, North America, Europe, I call them the global north, their practices have already damaged the environment. They have the big factories burning all kind of coal, etc. So that is why we're impacted by climate change. So if you have a project that's looking at reducing greenhouse gases, whether you're doing biodigester or any of those projects, you can apply for this funding. Or the big opportunity, which is what I like, is climate adaptation, meaning you're implementing sustainable agriculture, everything Mackie told you, we're adapting to the reality that climate is changing, the place getting hot and hotter. It's not going to stop. So how do we build our resilience to climate change? How are we strengthening our food security? How are we strengthening ourselves business resilience? So this way, when you think about it that way, your project fits squarely into an adaptation project that focuses on building resilience. And you can justify it with food security. So right now, this Caribbean Climate Innovation Program is giving maximum of $2 million US as a form of a grant. And they have smaller sizes, but you can access this right now. And all of you here fit that criteria by virtue of you incorporating sustainable agriculture. So it falls under adaptation. So anyone here understood the differences between climate mitigation and climate adaptation? Have you heard it before, or you're hearing it now for the first time?
Hearing it now.
Okay.
Hearing it now.
Hearing it now.
Okay. Oh, someone asked a question, what does equity at a credit union mean? Okay, I'll come back and answer that when we're wrapping up. First time, okay. So my session, so I'll create some slides for you, just looking at you understanding the concepts, climate adaptation, climate mitigation. This is why a lot of times we have these opportunities and we just pass them by because the lingo is too technical. We haven't been made aware of, what the opportunities are, and we don't even understand where to even begin, right? And I'm telling you, there are just some basic baby concepts you have to understand to see how your project fits in. So tomorrow, we will be looking at I keep saying tomorrow, Thursday. We'll look at the application for this, but you can type online and I'll share the link. Let's see. Okay, I'll probably click to it. We'll go to it later. I'll share it in the group so you can have a look and see what it's about. And I think the deadline might be way in November or something, so you have time. This also is for projects. Again, this is more around climate mitigation, those doing energy access, renewable energy, or even incorporating it into your existing business model. This is just an example of how it's applied. Someone is doing green hydrogen for local energy in Barbados. This one, regularly check UNICEF Innovation Fund. I believe when I run through, I'll just click a few of the links. I think they have a call right now, actually. So I have to change the deadline on this one. But you have to keep checking because every 2 months they launch something and they're focused around different innovations. Microsoft is supporting circular economy, sustainable agriculture, any strategy for nature-based. And they're looking at small to large. They provide debt mixed with equity and debt. Hi. This one is very easy and we always get access to the grant regularly. So also for those of you who are into community projects as well, think about building resilience It does touch on disaster risk management, but again, think of it from the perspective of your business. You can also apply for implementing, even if you're trying to test out a new model for building resilience. They're very open to it. And they're small projects, 5,000 to 25,000 US, and that's ongoing. So here's an example of the project where Trinidad Tobago extreme weather. Oh, sorry. Extreme weather resilience. As you know, the weather has an impact on agriculture, especially if you're doing open field farming, as you know. So I wouldn't have to go into what you did already in sustainable agriculture. Notice how climate finance brings everything together, be it your sustainable agriculture, your agribusiness. All of these things are important. You have to know that information to be able to apply, to understand what your needs are. So here you have a description of erosion. And in this case, they use this grant to help reduce soil erosion. So think about your own farm. If you're having a lot of erosion and you had to find the money to fix that, the fencing, the this, it costs money. So think innovative ways of using a grant. Okay. This one, this deadline passed, but it does keep coming every year. Right now, our focus is on building resiliency. And it could even be resilient products, resilient crops, resilient ways of doing things, but it normally comes up. So for every year, we need to check Open IDEO. They always have some good projects. Now, I spoke to the good folks at RMI. They have an interesting facility. So they're more focused around climate mitigation. So if you're incorporating things like energy, etc., it could even be within your farm, etc. But they have a unique facility where they have two funds. One fund is grant focused, and that fund provides technical assistance. So you could apply at any time. Your project could be rough, and they can, if your project idea is good, it has legs, they can give you a grant and they will work with you to scale up your project to make it nice and big. This is why I said, you know, it doesn't really matter where you are, what state you are. If you do have a vision, they have facilities you can go to help develop your projects through a grant without having to pay. Because if you have to go to someone else, they probably charge you an arm and a leg to help develop your project. So make it more what we call bankable. So the banks can see it less risky. And then for those who are at a stage of growth where you can take on private equity investment, why people like private equity is they gain a partner, they gain, maybe that partner they're gaining shouldn't just be about money. They should have something they brought to the table, whether it's mentorship, whether it's access to the network. They should be able to take you to the next level, right? So if I'm coming in to invest in you, I'm not just putting money in you and then chasing you every minute. Let's have a board meeting. Let me see what you're doing. No, there needs to be some additional value beyond the money that you would want to partner with them, the relationships, etc. So private equity fund can finance, and the good thing with equity is it's patient, meaning you don't have to pay it back like a loan immediately, but you could, but it will allow you to develop your business concept to the level which it could pay back. But with equity and private equity, the returns they're looking for is high. So obviously they want you to become a big business overnight, you know, over time. That's why it's only for certain stages. And obviously, if you're adding in renewable, this and that, and you can make money off of it, they like it. and they're focused around key sustainable development goals. So we'll talk a little bit about SDGs on Thursday. I think we're almost at time. Could you give me 1 more minute? So Actis is another fund. And this is, they give you equity and they also debt. Sometimes they give you, especially for infrastructure, if you're building infrastructure, this can help as well. Iris, well, the deadline passed, this is every year. And you want to start getting prepared for it because it focuses on, remember, St. Kitts and Nevis is not on the overseas development assistance side. So the amount of opportunities that we can access are a lot less. So for me to curate these ones is like a miracle. Yeah. So these come every year and it's specifically for SIDS, small island developing states. So I'm always looking for opportunities that don't lump us in the bracket of low income country or middle income, because they say we're high income, but will finance us because we're small island developing states. So this is a good one to look at, is annual. So this one just passed. And we have so many others. I think the deadlines. September, I have a couple in October. So I will share that with you on Thursday. We have a couple ones in October that I'll share with you on Thursday. But as you can see, you just need someone to keep curating these opportunities. Hold on. As I'm in a class, I'll call you back. Okay. Someone needs help with their grant. Okay. So I think we're at time. Can I get some feedback? What were your thoughts? Are these some opportunities you think you would be able to tap into?
Me personally, I don't think I'm there yet. The information is good to know, and we're learning where to find and how to utilize it. But I think for me personally, haven't even gotten off the ground yet.
Okay. So you need more assistance with your planning?
Yes.
Okay. And they have some smaller grants that you can do that with.
Okay, thank you.
So don't think what we tend to do, we have that small voice in our head, always second guessing. We see a little bit of paper and then we start to shrink back and like, well, no, that's not for me. You have to fight that self-voice, right? And put yourself out there because the funds are there. You just have to be able to tap into it. Anybody else? Hello?
It was very informative. I definitely have a lot of work to do and I am willing to do so. So I'm just pretty much excited for the next class on Thursday.
Okay, very good. I'm going to share with you the Caribbean Climate Investment Program in the link. So at least you can start looking at that one. There are a few other ones as well. They have like two, there's one gender one. I have to double check to see if the deadline is like imminent. Nilsa has something to say, Nilsa, go ahead. Your hand's been up for a while.
Good evening. Just wondering, what are your thoughts on Caribbean exports? I've heard of it in the past when it comes to grants, but seeing that you were saying the grants, no money is free and all that stuff. What are your thoughts on that one?
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Caribbean Export is an agency that's headquartered in Barbados. It was, you could say, it's non-profit, but it's like approved by CARICOM, but it's more like a private sector driven entity focusing on facilitating exports. So whether you're exporting goods, exporting services, they have lots of programs. So they've been really good at mobilizing money for their programming, and they normally would get funds from the European Commission. So through those funds, they have like a small private sector facility, and in that they have many different programs. From time to time, you can get, like I said, you can get access to travel and go on a workshop, in a different area. So from time to time, they do sponsorships like that. And then they also run, I have been running for many years, a grant scheme. It's a reimbursable grant, meaning when you are awarded the grant, first of all, they don't take that long, like not 2 years. I think over time, they've kind of improved the process. It's maybe a 6 months to 7 months process. You get awarded for the grant, but you then need to then spend your money. This is where you need to have the project skills, because you need to account for every dollar. There's a whole procurement process you need to learn, but it's not hard. I mean, there are other people in the Federation who have received these grants before, and you have people that can help. So it's reimbursable. So hear me. It means you have to spend your money, do your activities as per their framework, and then submit the receipts, and then you'll be reimbursed. So the big challenge we have in our region, especially St. Kitts and Nevis, is that normally when you get a grant like that, you should be able to walk into a bank and say, listen, I got a grant for 30,000 euro or 50,000 euro. And can you give me the financing? Because you're going to get it back through the loan. But unfortunately, we don't necessarily have that flexibility. In some cases, I've seen it done, but very rare. So just bear in mind, it is a reimbursable grant. It is possible. And you know something? I'm going to see if Anna is available to speak with you guys directly from the horse's mouth, because she did receive it. And I know she did make an arrangement with the bank. I don't know whether it was national or wherever, but she made a special arrangement with them. And so they were able to then sort of advance. More or less for me, I think a credit union might be easier to work with in a case like that, because, credit unions are, they're people banks. So they have a bit more lenient process, and they have a better understanding. So it's much easier, especially if you've been paying into your shares as a member, then it's much easier to say to them, well, I've been awarded the grant, which is as good as cash, as paper. I need an advance to help me implement the project, and then you pay them from the proceeds. So it's something you can work out there. So it's not bad. Just bear in mind that one, if you have to implement the project tomorrow, it's not going to happen immediately. There's probably at least a six months wait for you to get it, 6 to 8 months. And then when you get the grant, you still have to organize yourself. Now, if you can now marry Caribbean Export Grant with ECPC GC, long story, maybe, I think tomorrow I'll send you on Thursday, we'll look at the ECPCGC terms. I think they have it from National Bank. I believe you can get a maximum 300,000. So say you're getting 300,000, that's guaranteed 80% already. So it's supposed to have a lower cost. You're supposed to bring in maybe a 10% or 20%. And if you got the grant facility and you have another backer, it's very easy for you to leverage on those things. So again, think about your capital stack framework of how you design the funds, because the same way you have your projects, you have flow of funds can come from different sources. You just need to know how to stack it properly. Okay. Paris says, great information. I'm so excited about developing my project and launching my product. However, in light of what was shared, I have to go back to the drawing board to make sure I'm maximizing on different areas, amounts of fund needed. Yes, so business planning. And I believe we will be looking at your business model. Specifically, I think we can make it on Thursday. Get in, look at your business model. So you have that logic. So it's supposed to be a living document. It's not something abstract where someone's doing a business plan for you. You got to live it, because at the end of the day, that market translates into dollars. So I'll be sharing with you a nice Excel sheet that you'll be able to use to do your business model innovation. Julianne says one-on-one, sure. Come back, let's have our sessions. And then on the last session, I'll send a schedule and then you can book for one-on-ones. How about that? I'll send you my calendar link for that. Okay?
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so ladies, it is now 8:16. I think I've taken up your time. I know it's been hectic, and I know with the weather, you coming here today is a big testament of your commitment. So I really want to congratulate you. Try and enjoy the rest of your evening. It's nice and cool, not so hot, and hopefully we can get back to work tomorrow. So thank you. Latoya?
Yes.
Latoya?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
Thank you very much also.
I hand it back over to you.
That is fine.
And I'm going to curate some more links for you of the current projects, so that when we come on Thursday, you're gonna have that. Because I know you have to wait a while for handouts, so I'll give you those links. So at least you can start preparing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I'm sure the comments show how much the participants also appreciated your presentation tonight.
Awesome.
So with that, we will be signing off for tonight, ladies. We'll see you all on Thursday for another wonderful session, looking at how to spend money and how to make money, as well as how to get money. So management total of funding. Thank you again. We'll meet here again on Thursday at 6. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Take care.
Good night.
Night.